Hello, everybody. Let's see if I can clean the lens off. Ooh, there we go. Okay. Happy Friday, everyone. Let me move this. Ooh, there we go. I think that's good. Hello. All right, got my coffee. And we are ready to go. So, before I bring on today's guest, and again, for anyone watching the replay, I am Evelyn of Pink Sheep Design. This is my Pink Sheep and Friends Friday live chats with other makers, meant to help you guys build community and find new fiber friends, discover new artists, designers, crocheters, knitters, anyone, just people in our community. I did want to share before we get started, because I try to do any little announcements that we've got happening before we go live with our guest. And today I wanted to announce that we have something new in the Etsy shop that was just released today. It was actually released as part of our latest mystery box. So if you have not gotten your Halloween mystery box, close your eyes for just a minute and your ears. You might want to just pause it. I don't know. But we now have pom-pom makers, or it's a football post for you to play paper football. But these are simple jumbo pom-pom makers, super simple design. They make jumbo pom-poms that are anywhere from 3.5 to 4.5 inches. I don't think I've made one that is quite 5 inches in diameter. I think 4.5. Probably about as big as I'm going to get these. But I made this one, which is quite fluffy. This is just Woolies Thick and Quick. They take a little bit more trimming just because of the style. But this is the finished palm. And then this is one that I made using some of the new Premier Sweet Roll Vivid. So this is just like a 4-weight yarn. I probably could have used more. I don't usually make pom-poms using this kind of yarn, but I wanted to see the difference. So this is a Woolies Thick and Quick, and this is that. And we have a couple of colors in the shop, these and the pink. So this is what's in the shop right now. We'll obviously be adding more, but we wanted to see the interest level before we went crazy. But we have red, orange, black, and hot pink in the shop. So you guys can check those out now. I have not put them, it's not in the link in my bio, but if you go into my Etsy shop, it should be at the top since it's new. If not, you can go under tools, or you can search for pom-pom maker in the shop. So check them out. We're super excited about those. They've been on our radar for a while, and we just had not had the chance to, hadn't had the chance to release them yet. So here we are. Okay, so super excited today to bring on Jennifer Borchert. I realized I didn't ask her how to say her name, so I hope I said it right. And so let's see if she is here. I have to request, see if we can find her. There she is. Haha. Invite. Fingers crossed that it works. Technology can be fun. Hello.
Hello.
Yarn stash. There we go. That was a beautiful yarn wall.
Thank you. I just got this room finished so that I can start using it.
Yes. So we got to chat yesterday, and I don't know if any of you guys are new to watching Pink Sheep and Friends. I usually chat with my guest a little early so that we can have a chance to talk before we go live in front of other people. And you got to talk a little bit about your yarn room, and I would love if you would share a little bit about that, because that's kind of the newest thing, right?
We decided to finish out our attic space, and we still needed it for storage. Luckily, as where the ceiling slopes, we can still use all the space down the walls where we had stuff tucked anyway. But all it really needed was some flooring, drywall, and insulation. So we thought, but when we got down into doing each individual thing, you'd run into some kind of problem,
Hmm.
and um, the flooring wasn't up to code, so we had to have a trellis built in our actual garage to
Hmm.
support this entire space. But
Yeah.
it finally got finished, and I will show you
Somebody
my.
said yarn tour. So yes, let's see it.
Okay, all right. So it's
Oh,
pretty long.
oh my
Um,
gosh, it looks
it's
fantastic.
2 car garage space, I guess.
Yeah.
And I was able to get my desk in here, so that was great.
Oh, you have so much packed in there and it doesn't look overwhelming. Like you look like you still have space and breathing room
Yeah.
and plenty of storage.
Well, behind this one and this one, there's these doors to get in through the wall. So all of this space, there's room behind there.
That's so smart.
Uh, well, it adds, square footage to my house
Oh
because it was
yeah.
unused before, even though it was an attic. So now it's finished, but now my space is way bigger, and I don't have to have it in a whole bunch of different rooms.
Yes. Yeah, that's a huge change. That was what happened when we moved from Atlanta. Most of my stuff was scattered throughout 3 different rooms about.
Right.
And
Okay.
now at least I have one room that has everything in the room, not as big of a space as what you're dealing with. There's no way I could put like a couch in here, but I've got my desk, I've got my yarn, it's all in one place. And it makes such a huge difference for like productivity and all of that. I don't know if
Yeah.
you felt the same way.
I just got it done, so I'm just now using it. I didn't know if I'd like it at first because the low ceilings kind of intimidated me.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't know if I could make it feel homey. So then I thought,
Oh, you
well, if I
did.
decorate it kind of
Yeah.
like my living room, then
Hmm.
it shouldn't throw off my vibe too bad because I'm used to being in my living room. So I
Yeah.
just went with that. My whole house is the same color.
Yeah.
I did that a couple years ago. So it's just a real light gray with white,
Yeah.
and then it feels open and airy and comfy
Mhm.
and helps with
Yeah.
anxiety.
And did you have to put a window in? Because that, like, usually attics don't have windows, and like that light is wonderful.
Yes, we put the window in. We added a mini split so that it wouldn't
Mhm.
change the air unit on the house. So this mini split will do the whole entire upstairs heat or air.
That's
Um,
great.
yeah, it's nice. I like it. I got myself a great big old TV in here in case uh, I needed to help support other people by watching their YouTubes and help them get
Yeah.
monetized. And
Yeah, that's super smart. I love it. That's fantastic. Well, we totally skipped introduction because I jumped right into our yarn room. So if you'll do just a super quick introduction for anyone who does not know who you are, and what you do, you don't have to go into crazy detail, but just like a quick hello to everyone.
I'm Jennifer Borchert, and you didn't butcher my name. It's just Borchert. Uh,
Yay!
from Jennifer Stitched Up. I've been crocheting, I guess 9 years, I believe. Um, my mom taught me when I was little, maybe around 10 or so. I think I
Mhm.
still have that piece too. I remember it was yellow
That's
yarn, and I know I see it every once in a while when I'm going through all my junk. Um, but she just taught me like, I think a half double crochet and doing a row to do like a little blanket or something.
yeah.
And I never really picked it back up. Became a cake decorator. And then, like I said, about 9 years ago, after my daughter was 1, my
Mhm.
mother had made her a hat when she was born.
Mhm.
And it was an owl hat. She crocheted her owl hat. And I thought it was just the cutest thing. And I was like, I gotta learn how to do that.
Yeah.
So,
I love that you have the first project because I feel like so many people that I've talked to wish they did.
oh yeah.
Um, and like I have no idea. I'm sure that the first project I made was like a scarf. because I learned in art class in high school. And I feel like that would have been a go-to of like, let's just make a straight knit scarf, you know?
Right.
But no idea where that would be or what happened to it or anything.
I think I'm not one to hang on to things, but I think because crochet's been in my family, my grandmother taught my mom, and my grandma used to crochet with thread, fine thread, and make beautiful
Gosh.
Barbie doll dresses, like wedding
Wow.
gowns, and enter them in the
Yeah.
state fair. And she also did the baby sweaters with the matching booties and the blankets.
Hmm.
And I remember her always taking orders for those. And my mom, we would go shopping to pick her out ribbon. She always would add the ribbon to them and the little roses to them.
Yeah.
And so I think just knowing that it's gone back a couple generations, uh, maybe I just kept on to it. I don't know, but I need to find it and like keep it in here somewhere
Yeah.
just so I can like look at the tension and the stitches
Yeah.
and see if it's any good.
Yeah, definitely. Well, so I know you don't decorate cakes anymore, but I would love to know because that was predating the
Right.
crochet era. So how did that start? And do you feel like you've always had kind of a crafty nature, like you've wanted to create? Was that a part of that?
Oh yeah. My mom was always making something.
Hmm.
I remember like Fimo. She when Fimo came out, she started buying Fimo and making little magnets and
Hmm.
just doing other little things, but she was always showing us one craft after another.
Yeah.
I think the only craft that I didn't super get into was sewing.
Hmm.
And because my sister loved it so much that she hogged the sewing machine. So I could never get anything in there if I wanted to. But yeah, so when I was 16, I just started, I believe at a Winn-Dixie,
Hmm.
and they were hiring for the bakery.
Hmm.
And I got super lucky because there was this lady named Carol who was the cake
Uh-huh.
decorator there, and she was phenomenal. Um,
Yeah.
I got very, very lucky because there's a lots of bakeries out there that don't have like a very actual experienced
Yeah.
cake decorator. And so I remember they were showing us each thing throughout our like orientation process that day of what we would do in all the various parts of the bakery, like
Hmm.
pudding cakes and donuts. And when it got time to show cake decorating, um, I was the youngest that was hired there and taught to let my elders go first.
Hmm.
And there was not, I believe there was 9 of us, and she was showing how to do roses. And a
Hmm.
rose you make on a rose nail, and it's just a nail with a about a quarter to a $half size flat head on the top of it.
Hmm.
And then you use your piping bag and you make the rose and you turn the nail while you're making the rose. And she only had 4 or 5 of the rose nails to give to everyone, and she handed me one, but I gave it to someone that was older than me because like I said, that's what I was taught to do. But I wanted to do it so bad. I grabbed a great big bucket lid that
Uh-huh.
was, like a big bucket lid, and I did it on the bucket lid perfectly.
Uh-huh.
And so she's like, "You're the cake decorator."
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so she grabbed me, and she was ready to teach me everything she knew. Um, and I picked up on it all really fast. But I guess, I have even with crochet, I have mastered my tension. I can control all of that, so that really works well with piping. Um, so she taught me piping and stuff like that, and I knew how to ice cakes and that direction. But then my mom, maybe because of the Fimo, took it more into like the fondant direction, where
Hmm.
she started, trying to encourage me to play with fondant, and then that took off really well but I wanted to do that for myself at home.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, and I think I feel like, I don't feel like my parents were ever very crafty. Um,
Okay.
I mean, well, I guess, I mean, thinking back on it, my mom was in the way that she was super like thrifty. So she would want to like, if she wanted to decorate the house, like I remember one time we lived in Wetumpka, Alabama. So like super country, rural. And I didn't realize that the pine cones in Wetumpka, Alabama are like ginormous compared to like
Okay. Oh
normal
yeah.
pine cones.
Yeah.
They're like this big. I mean, I remember them being like as big as my head. And so she would like go out in the woods and collect these pine cones and spray paint them gold and like make a centerpiece, for her dining room table. So it would be like more of the crafty home decor kind of stuff. Because I don't think she sewed. I don't think she crocheted or knit or anything like that. She passed away when I was little. That's why I'm like, I don't really remember.
Okay.
Um, but she would, she loved going to thrift stores and like repurposing things. But my two grandmothers were oil painters.
Okay.
And so it was like this desire. I wanted to be like an artist, like I wanted to feel like I could paint or draw, and like it just didn't happen for me. I tried so hard to like bring the creative genes out and like try to paint, try to draw, and try to sculpt and do all these things, and realized that I think that just skipped me, or skipped me and my mom. I don't know.
Well,
But
at one point I was thinking about going to college for more culinary, but
mhm.
there was nothing local that they were going to be able to teach me that I didn't already learn myself.
Yep. Hmm.
Fortunately, um, you'd have YouTube to look up maybe some
Yep.
kind of technique or something. Um,
Hmm.
but I ended up going to school for accounting, not
Yeah.
really using that at all.
Yeah. 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 I think my undergrad was biology and psychology.
Okay.
So the psychology I do feel like has helped through my whole life. I mean, like, being able
Right.
to apply that to like anything you do is
Right.
great. But the biology, don't really remember too much of any of that.
Yeah. That's like the accounting. If it comes back up, I might remember it. I'm like,
Yeah.
I took Excel classes, and
Hmm.
so learning
That's
Excel
helpful.
is amazing. Yeah, that's very
Yeah.
helpful. I don't remember any of that, how to make the spreadsheets or anything. Like I didn't use it, so I remember my sister had to give me a refresher course to help me when I
Uh-huh.
started doing the graphs for the waistcoat stitch hats because I was like,
Gotcha.
man, I don't remember all this stuff, and again, then after I got going, I Googled some tricks to remember that
Hmm.
like Control H is your best
Yeah.
friend.
Yeah. I don't even know what that does. What does Control H do?
It brings up a help bar so that you can control and change your colors easily, like select certain
Oh,
ones and you can go in there and pick one and change it to a different color and it'll change all of them to that color. So like
nice.
that's really beneficial for me when I'm trying to design a graph in there and I'm like pick the wrong color or something like that.
And that's super, super helpful to know. So everybody learned something today if you use Excel.
Control
But I
H.
didn't realize that you used Excel to do the graph.
Yes.
So I know that I feel like when I'm in Facebook groups, a lot of people will ask, like, what software do people use? What do people do? But use Excel. That's amazing.
Yes, I use Excel and I make them all by myself and because when you select it somewhere in Excel you can go copy it as shown when printed, I believe it says.
Hmm.
And when you do that, it takes off everything and makes it a picture like it needs to in the Word document. So I've always just used Word because it goes along with Excel. It's the easiest.
Yeah.
I've never tried any other form of
Hmm.
grids or apps or anything. I know that there's a lot out there with cross stitch and whatever, but I'm super comfortable with Excel, so it's just my go-to.
Well, and it's like using what works. Like I feel like once you get
Right.
really comfortable with something, you know, it's empowering when you get comfortable with something because then like you really know what you're doing, you know how everything works. And um, that was for me, I was in a marketing position and everybody in the marketing world knew how to use like all of the Adobe stuff. So like
Right.
Photoshop and all of that. And I never took classes on it. I still wish like I would love to like just take a class, and actually
Okay.
go walk through and learn that stuff. But I learned how to use Canva. And for me now it's like I can do almost anything that the people in my marketing group who were actually graphic designers, I could do almost everything at least 85%. I don't want to go all the way into the 90s because I do feel like there's a
Okay.
lot of things you can do on Photoshop that you can't do on Canva. But for the
Okay.
basics, I felt really confident. And I think it's like just finding what works and getting really confident with it. And then, you're in a really good spot.
And well, you enjoy it. I love all of your artwork. I love it.
Mm,
That's what my husband was like, what do you want for
thanks.
Valentine's Day? And I was like, pink sheep cups.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
Well, and those most of the design, like the drawing and stuff, I've used Procreate, which was totally
Okay.
new to me pre-COVID. That was like as soon as COVID hit and everybody was at home, I was like, time to try something new. And my
Yeah.
husband had just gotten an iPad and I had never used it before, so downloaded Procreate and started trying to like draw and sketch. And as long as it's simple, I can handle it. But like shading and, really getting into like detailed stuff, that's difficult for me. So I try to just keep it simple and then I don't get frustrated.
Yeah.
So how did you get into uh, pattern design? What happened there?
You know, my cousin started asking me if I could crochet different hats when she saw that I was trying to do that.
Hmm.
And um, a long time ago, one of the cake decorators that I worked with told me something that's been very valuable that I've used my whole life that stuck with me is that you can do it. Whatever anybody asks. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't do that. And she goes, you can do it.
Yeah.
I know you can. And just pushed me away. And I'm like, she just doesn't want to do it. But in
Yeah.
her head, I didn't want to do
Yeah.
it. I felt out of touch with that I'd be able to do that or lack the confidence maybe. But so I'd always try. And
Hmm.
so my cousin was like, "Oh, I'm sure you can figure it out because of what you did with cakes."
Yeah.
So I started that way and everything she asked for was a different character. And it was for her Christmas presents. And she
Hmm.
has a lot of brothers and sisters and uh, nieces and nephews. So she was always ordering stuff that way. And then I would share pictures of them on Pinterest. And then I started getting messages if that I would make that a pattern.
Hmm.
So then I just kind of started joining different Facebook groups. Got super lucky. I met a lot of phenomenal women that helped me. One, Colleen in particular, she um, was able to teach me about Craft Yarn Council and going
Yes.
there for information. You can be,
Game changer.
yeah, um,
Yeah.
you can be certified in crochet. You can take classes. You can teach yourself how to be an advanced crocheter and learn all the techniques
Mhm.
that all that stuff's available. Um, but when I was being requested to do actual patterns, I went to my go-tos like Ira Rott or Heidi. Oh, I can't even think of her crochet name. But actual good patterns to draw off
Hmm.
from of when I
Yeah.
was taking my notes, how to turn them into a pattern where you're getting minimal amount of questions possible because people are
Yes.
paying for a plan to
Hmm.
make this particular item and no matter their level of crochet, everyone should be able to get through it the best of their ability.
Yeah.
And if you write it well, you answer any of the questions that is going to come up in their head.
Yeah.
So I just
It's
took that
hard.
very seriously. And when I started getting testers and they would ask questions, and I realized like everybody's brain works differently and you got to kind of answer all these different questions.
Yeah.
It just became fun and enjoyable.
Mhm.
Um, and I just kind of just stuck with it.
Yeah. Well, and that makes me so happy to hear because I really do think that there's kind of two schools of thought or just the way that people react to trying to
Right.
design patterns. And the first one is this is just too much. Like there are some
Yeah.
people who the process is not going to be as enjoyable because, like you said, all of our brains and desires work differently. And so for some people, they jump into pattern making and they're like, I don't really want to deal with all of these people, and
Yeah.
not in a negative way, but just in like our personalities are different. Um, and there are people who are driven and motivated by, like, my testers are like the most motivating and
Yeah.
inspiring people in my life as a designer. And I love even the hard tests, even the difficult ones
Yeah.
are still extremely gratifying. And
Yeah.
it sounds like you feel that way with like your test
Oh,
process.
yeah. I mean, you can always learn something in crochet
Hmm.
because somebody's going to come along like Linda and stick a hook in a different spot nobody else has stuck one in before for some
Hmm.
weird reason and make this new stitch. And you're like, okay, we have to teach everybody how to do this. We got
Yeah.
this, but yeah, I feel like it takes a team. I love my testers. They're so helpful. And um, it I don't know, it's had its ups and downs with making sure you answer everything or you're available to everybody. Um, I know when having Etsy and they ask you questions and you're asleep and then like
Yeah.
you don't get to them because they're in a different time zone. At least they updated and gave you more time to respond to questions. So uh, that bothered me for a little while, but
Hmm.
um, I mean, I get emails sometimes. I get questions through the Ravelry. I really enjoy when people ask in my Facebook group,
Yeah.
Stitched Up Community,
Because other people
because
can help answer,
yeah,
right?
right, yeah, because
Yes.
my testers are all in there, and so
Hmm.
they can help with that as well. Just the waistcoat stitch itself is such a simple stitch, but it's got a ton of rules. It's a silly
Yeah.
little stitch, but it's got a lot of rules. And if you don't know all of those rules or can't grasp the concept, then it's going to, well, even if you can, it's going to take a minute. It's a stitch you just got to keep practicing with.
Yes.
Um, but it's so beautiful. It looks knit.
Yes. Well, and that's one I think I attempted it once and I didn't practice enough and I gave up because I was
Oh yeah,
like, I cannot get the hook in the right hole. Like, this is
yeah,
not working for me. Um, and it really does, like you said, it comes down to practice. And it's with any stitch. Like you can't just
yeah,
give up after you've tried it once and it didn't work. Like it's practice, like with gauge. Like if your
yeah,
tension doesn't come naturally, it's going to take a lot more practice because it doesn't
yeah.
come naturally to everyone.
Well, it's you have to be loose with it, and then people want it videos, and I don't have a YouTube, and that's
Mm-hmm.
something I probably should absolutely do. There's so much with designing that you can get yourself into. You know that you're into
Yeah.
everything. Um, but having a handle on all of those things at the same time is a bit stressful for me.
Yeah.
I make videos, I put them on my Facebook page, and I share them
Mhm.
in my group, and I keep them pinned at the top. But I just want people to know I can go kind of fast. You should be able to do that. If you're loose enough or have your hook big enough, you're using the right yarn.
Mhm.
And if you can't get in there and you can't get your hook in there, then it's too tight and it won't work because then it's not going to have
And
any
I'm a
give. It's
tight
not going to
crocheter.
fit when you put it
So it
on. Yeah.
totally makes sense because I crochet really tight. Like I have testers who will have to size down like 3 hooks or more when
Yeah,
they're going, doing my stuff because I just little too tight with the crochet. Death
right.
grip, right?
Yes, death grip. And you don't want that for this. You want it, but
No.
then like when you're doing it and you're color changing and you kind of see it a little bit,
Hmm.
you immediately want to fix that because on any other project you have to fix it. You just have to fix
Hmm.
it. You got to line it up. But for whatever reason, when you're done with the waistcoat stitch, it just kind of goes together. And you
Hmm.
don't see all of that. It's so simple, but it can be a jerk sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
It can be a jerk sometimes.
So you post a lot of videos in your Facebook group, which I think is phenomenal. And actually, I'm pretty sure that I have searched because anytime I go and I say, okay, I'm going to ask this person to be on Pink Sheep and Friends. I do a little research. Like, I'm like, where are they in this social media universe? Where are their shops? Are they on Etsy and Ravelry and YouTube and all of these places? So I can kind of see all the things they're doing. And I'm pretty sure that when I Googled you, videos came up from
Mhm.
Facebook. So, like, I didn't realize that Facebook videos are searchable on Google, which is actually great.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
they and then there's a tabs up at the top underneath of your main picture, the
Mm-hmm.
background photo. Under there is like top the tabs where it has files or
Yeah.
videos or photos. And I wish that they would get it to where it could be in the groups too, because that would be
Mm-hmm.
beneficial if I could have a video tabs in my group. But
Yeah.
I just started doing the videos on my phone and putting them on there if anybody had any kind of questions because I've noticed over on YouTube, um, there's a lot of YouTubes that say how to do the waistcoat stitch. And
Mm-hmm.
if you look at the piece, I can see it sticks out to me like that. All of the places that they didn't put the hook on the right bar, they didn't grab the right bar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I can't say go watch this video because that
Yeah.
person didn't even catch that they grabbed the wrong leg to put the stitch into. And um and then also even I found with the decreases, they weren't decreasing the waistcoat stitch properly either,
Yeah.
for it to look right. And then when you start decreasing with the waistcoat stitch, it tightens up even more than it already was. So then
Yeah.
if you're having a problem with your tension, you might need to go up another hook size to do that portion of the hat so that you can get
Yeah.
into that stitch and finish it
Yeah.
and make it look nice. But it's it it is beginner friendly
Mm-hmm.
if you're willing to be open to learn something new.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so do you think, is it on your list to do a YouTube channel and like just migrate videos over, or is that not even like on the radar right now?
No, I want to. I'm still trying to decide if I needed a website. I went on and bought my domain name and
Mhm.
uh was I don't know. I think I've just kind of been put on pause because my
Mhm.
daughter had my first grandchild, so I'm a granny now, and
Wow.
she decided to go to work, so I'm
Huh?
babysitting.
Yes.
And I don't necessarily want to do that, but I am doing that, and it's just completely changed everything. I don't feel like I have the time. Well, I absolutely don't have the time that I was spending doing this because, I have over 100 patterns. Um,
Yeah,
and I put that out within a 2-year period of time.
that's a
Uh,
lot.
it is a lot. It's just I know how to do this, and I can do this pretty fast because I've got a template set up, and it helps a
Hmm.
lot. And then I like to take requests. I've done well over the amount of patterns that I offer to sell because I take requests. So people will, they'll contact me and say, "Hey, I really want to make this logo for all the people at my work. Could you get this in a pattern for me?" And I take custom requests for $20 and I'll work
That's
on a
cool.
graph.
That's
Yeah,
awesome to know too.
yeah. And so
Yeah.
then they just shoot me over the money on PayPal, and I make them a pattern and send it to them. And not every single pattern am I going to be able to sell like in my shop, because what does that mean? Like that logo
Yeah.
means nothing to somebody else.
Yeah.
So um, I'm busy, and then I also help Linda at H2T Crochet Factory. She's
Hmm.
the designer there. Her and her mother Josie were a team, and Josie suffered a stroke in her eye, and she's got arthritis.
Yeah.
So her crocheting and knitting slowed way down. But Linda would design for Josie, her mother, to make her design come to life. And they loved craft fair, and with she likes to design just different things nobody else has. And
Hmm.
when she kind of lost that ability, I offered to help. And so
Yeah.
we teamed up, and I help her get her designs in written pattern form.
That's awesome.
She's new at crochet. She's only been doing it for 2 years herself, but
Wow. Yeah.
she's phenomenal. And I just wanted to help her help everybody else be able to make what she makes, because it's so beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you really do have a lot of aspects to your business outside of just designing specific patterns to sell on like Ravelry and Etsy. And I do think like website wise, like you could have a whole page dedicated to like, these are the kinds of things I did as customs, like showcasing
Right.
that kind of stuff. Cause that's a huge deal for people
That's a
if,
good idea.
you know,
I like
to
that.
have someone, you know, because that is the big question. I get a lot of people, or I see a lot of people in Facebook groups like, you know, I have this idea, but I don't know how to turn it into like a graph to be able to
Right.
crochet it. So it's a huge, you know, a, a service that you offer to people.
I'm busy.
Yeah.
I'm always busy. But then my friend will reach out to me and ask me if I can test a pattern or something, and I have to
Mhm.
help. I have to stop what I'm doing sometimes and help my friends, because they helped me. They stopped
Yes.
what they were doing. They tested my pattern. They helped me, and I want to return the favor. I don't. Just sometimes I can't meet a deadline because I'm too busy.
Life. Yes. And so how often would you say that you test for people now?
Well, very often I feel like, however, I've been on pause getting this room started, because
Mhm.
when they started doing the drywall, I had to pack up all my yarn, and
Yeah.
that was weird and very hard, and it took way longer than it was supposed to. It
Yeah.
threw me. I think I'm 3 months behind.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. Um,
Yeah.
But yeah, I love testing, because sometimes I have to take a break from what I'm doing so that I can continue to enjoy crochet, you know,
Yeah.
because if you do the same thing over and over again, it takes the fun out of it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Have you dealt with burnout in during this time period, specifically with crochet or designing? And do you have um, tips or techniques for people that you've used to try to keep yourself from getting to that point
oh
where you,
yes,
yeah,
definitely, definitely. Especially if I'm designing something and it's not turning out exactly the way I want. I'm pretty patient with that. I can throw it in timeout. It's fine. I'll come back to it in a minute. I might need to make something completely different or work on something else I've got going on. Um, Sometimes that's a pain in the butt to do, because like I have I have patterns I haven't released that have been tested, that I
yeah,
haven't made myself, that my
mhm,
testers have made before me. Um,
that's all.
So I constantly feel like I got to catch up. So I got a little bit of that stress on me.
Mhm.
But if I'm making something and I just don't want to, or I need a break, um, I will allow myself to have a break. I will take a day to myself, and I will look for other people's patterns and look for something that brings me that joy back. And I'm like, I have got
Mhm.
to make this thing.
Yeah.
Um, And I just did that recently with Brittany Casey's Swamp Monster. She's Quality Stitches, and she has this cute little swamp monster, and she made it Ronald McDonald. I was like, what?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was super cute. I was like, okay, I've got to make that thing. And I turned it into a spider. And it just, that's all I needed. I just needed something to make me happy and get me all excited about working with yarn, but that I didn't have to worry about the design process of it,
Mhm.
to take away the stress so that you can have fun.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like it's it's the idea of personal projects. And I talk about that a lot because it's taking the
Oh,
time to make something that the goal of the thing you're making is not to make money. And that can
right.
be really difficult if once you turn crochet, even if it's a side business, like for people who crochet just to like go to craft shows during the holidays or like sell
Right.
a few things to help buy Christmas gifts. Anytime you move into that financial direction, even the smallest bit, it's very easy for you to feel like, well, I don't need to make that because it's not financially, it's not something that's going to make me money in some
Right.
way. And it's so important to like, even if it's just a couple projects a year, to do
Oh, yeah.
something that's just for you.
Yeah.
It's hard to do.
It is. I don't know. I think it took last year for me to feel that way, to where I was like allowing myself to make what I wanted to make,
Hmm.
because I support the designer. I buy the pattern, and then nothing ever happens with it. I don't ever get to make it. And then I see my testers, and I'm like, how do you have time? Like, where is this time coming from? They get
Yeah,
to make it, and I haven't got to make it. And I'm just
yeah.
like, I want to make it in that color too, or use that yarn. That's another thing that is super fun is uh, treat yourself to a yarn that you haven't used that you want to use,
Mhm.
and see what you can do with that. That brings back the joy, and you're like, oh, I really like this, and you might be able
Yeah,
to figure out some other project you could put it into.
yeah. I love that. That was something um last fall, I think. I made it a goal that this summer I wanted to try new yarn because and mostly because I mean my niche is that super bulky and
Right.
there's not as much super bulky out there as there is like worsted and smaller. And so I was like, I want my goal to be to try a few different new to me yarn options. Like I'd never used t-shirt yarn for a project, even though it's a very common super bulky option. Ribbon yarn was a big one, which I've tried that one. But there were a few others that were kind of new and things I'd never tried. Like I'd never worked with Chanel yarn. Like I'd worked with blanket
Okay.
yarn, but like the super fluffy, this stuff, this kind of stuff. So
Oh
I'd
yeah, I
never worked
love
with
working
that.
with it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like, and that really did, I kind of let the yarn tell me what it wanted to be, And that really like it's inspiring and motivating in a new way than like using the same yarn over and over again and trying to make new things.
Yeah. I
What?
love tweed. Tweed's one of my favorite. I don't I don't think I've made very much bulky with
Mhm.
tweed. Um, Making the hoods, I really like bulky yarn. I like
Mhm.
making the hoods with either like a blanket yarn along with
Mhm.
Caron yarn, or um, the velvet yarn, the Chanel
Mhm.
yarn. That
Mhm.
away, uh, you have to go down hook sizes, make it tight so that it'll keep its
Mhm.
shape because it's so soft. But
Yeah.
man, it's so comfortable and
I
so
know.
pretty. Premier Yarn has, a really good color option. Of course, the prices are going up, which is a little
Yeah.
scary. But
Uh-huh.
I mean, grab three or four worsted together and
Yes.
put them together, and that works too. If you're not used to it, your hands are going to hurt.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
and it's the tightness for sure. I think that's I only have a few projects that require really tight stitches and that's bags. I mean, just so that they don't have
okay,
holes in them.
right.
And I know for me, because I really like using the t-shirt yarn just because it's different and it's unique, but I made one of my crossbody bags out of it and the first thing was I had to use a metal hook because I was like, anything else, I'm going to snap it because it's just so difficult to work with. Um, and the other one was just taking a lot of breaks, taking breaks and stretching my wrists and working on another project because it's worth it in the end because like it's a really, really sturdy bag. But that's difficult. But like the most of my other patterns, like cardigans and things, I can use a much larger hook, which then cuts down on any of the pain.
Oh
So
yeah.
like I'll use a 16 millimeter hook with like woolly stick and quick or blanket yarn to make a cardigan, and then it's still got some of the flowiness to it that you don't really expect with super
Right.
bulky yarn. And you definitely don't have the wrist pain that you have when you're trying to use like a 6, 7, 8 millimeter hook with super bulky yarn. But like the hoods, you need it to have a shape, right? I mean, is that a
Right.
big piece of that?
Well, I like the look of it,
Mm-hmm.
so I just need it to stay round
Yes.
here and shape for your face. And um I just played around with it until it worked well. And
Mm-hmm.
um ba- every everything that's not a beanie really needs to be a shape. Or if it's not flat, if it's not a
Yeah.
blanket, if it's not a flat piece, you're really trying to shape your yarn and you want it
Mm-hmm.
to look good. But some people are afraid of the bulky yarn or
Mm-hmm.
the velvet yarn and they don't want to use it. And I just want to show that you can use it. You just might need to use it alongside something else.
Yes.
Because some yarns are really hard to see the stitches because when they start being textury, but if you use it along with a worsted weight, um,
Mm-hmm.
it might make you might, you know, you're going to run into what are you making? Is it going to make it larger? Do you have to downside some things or use some less
Yes.
stitches to size? But um, you're going to have a really beautiful product and see your stitches. Having that worsted weight in there is going to help you see that V of the stitch. It just makes a difference.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and so I wanted to, do you hold multiple strands of yarn together often? Is that something that you
Yeah.
do? And what are some of the patterns that you like to do that with the most? Some of your patterns.
Um, so the ones that I do that with are just the hoods and the character beanies that I have.
Mhm.
And my mom actually did some character hats, and she always double strand or triple strand her yarn to make it all nice and thick.
Mhm.
So that's where I learned from. Holds shape better
Yeah.
and looks cute. She's got a scarecrow hat and she's got a snowman hat that's just like real
Ah,
real three-dimensional where he's kind of slouching over and
yeah,
she did the Grinch. That was really cool. She has an amazing Grinch hat.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and I think something that I like to tell people too, like I know for me, like you're saying, how it can make it easier to work with. And, I don't know how you feel about homespun, but usually that's
I
like
love
people
it.
hate. So a lot of people hate it. It's love it or hate it. And I used to not be a huge fan because it can be difficult to work with. But I have to say, one of my absolute favorite cardigans that I've ever made was one of my Luna cardigans, and I held homespun double. And it was like the easiest yarn to work with just by holding it double by itself. Like I didn't have any other yarn in there, but it was just changed the game. And now I love it if I can hold it double.
I think my personal opinion, I know it's just my personal opinion on it is, if you're just an average crochet on an average, maybe a couple times a week or not even that. Like if you don't
Yeah.
crochet every single day, I believe it's harder to get used
Yes.
to different things. But if you're an avid crocheter and you're using different yarns, I think it's something that
Mhm.
you might want to fight at first, but then like you said, if you give it a chance and just
Mhm.
go for it, it it's not bad at all. Um, I haven't tried using the homespun double together, but that makes sense for me.
Yeah,
I
let
have
me see
I
if
can see my homespun over there on my yard wall.
I know, like eyeing it. Let me
Yeah,
see
I'm
if
just like it's really
here,
pretty.
show you what it this one looks like. I don't share it as much because it's not like super bright and colorful, so it doesn't usually make it onto my feed. Let
Okay.
me actually put it on so you can see it. Oh, so this was, I had a huge scrap bin full of homespun extras that I wasn't using.
Nice. I love it.
You can see
That is
it's
the
all
comfortable.
different colors.
Yeah.
We've got a green in there. We've got, there was a blue on here somewhere. Let me see. Who's on the back? Yeah, so there's like some blue in there.
Purple,
Um,
brown, orange.
yeah, but that's what it ended up looking like. And
Beautiful.
it's like the softest, coziest cardigan I've ever owned.
Yeah. I bought some homespun. I used it. I have a spring trap from Five Nights at Freddy's beanie,
Mhm.
and that was the yarn that he had to have. Like to
Yeah,
look his best, you had to have homespun.
yeah, yeah. So where do you feel like you pull inspiration for your designs? Do you feel like it just kind of comes from everywhere, or do you have specific aesthetics that you like?
I have to say, it's almost always has to do with some kind of request I get.
That's
Like,
cool.
someone's like, oh, can you make this? I'm like, okay. And then I'll just go, I look at various different artists.
Mhm.
Usually it's always some kind of drawing or painting.
Yeah.
Um, sometimes I like actual dolls or um, claymation.
Hmm.
So I'll go look at everything and like that I like and put it all together and then print out like an inspiration photo. So like right now I'm working on a Hello Kitty hoodie for Amelia, my 10-year-old for Halloween costume.
Hmm.
So here's my images
Oh,
that
I
I've
love
got
it.
going on. This is I think this is just the cutest thing ever. And it's got the hoodie and then it's got some boots, but it's got like the stockings and some shorts. So
Oh, and
I
I
would like
love that.
to
Yeah.
crochet some of those and like see how big the hood is going
Yeah.
over this, and then I'm gonna do different colors. Uh
Hmm.
so this is, I mean, super random, but it usually comes some kind of request. Oh, can you do this? Will you do this? Okay, let me figure it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's awesome. Well, and so I did do so everybody, if you guys, it's time for, a lot of people are making Halloween stuff, and I haven't
Right.
actually shared this yet on my Instagram feed. It's already up on my blog. But I put together 21 Halloween themed patterns on my
Awesome.
blog that's just a roundup, and your Hellfire helmet is on there. And so I'm super excited because I mean, huge Stranger Things fan. We've watched all the seasons. We watched them over again before the fourth one came out. Um, and so you guys can check that out. Obviously, you need to go follow Jennifer on Instagram, but you can check that out too with that pattern roundup that's on the blog now. I just need to get a link in my bio because it's all the things. Like you said, there's so many things that
I
are
uh I can't wait to see your Max cardigan when you're done.
yeah,
That'll be lovely.
it's going pretty good. It's interesting, and I would love your opinion on this. Because I stick with extremely simple stitches. So everything that I
Okay.
do is like super simple, super basic. And I've gotten to a point where I've made a couple of cardigans that alternate between half double crochet and single crochet rows. So it just goes
Okay.
half double, single. And I love the texture that it gives, but everybody, including myself, and that's how the Max jacket was. You started with your ribbing, and then you do your rows up from the ribbing, and it works the whole piece as one piece, and then you just fold the front panels over and have sew up the shoulders.
Okay.
But every single one of them is slanted, and I mean, I'm guessing it's just because of the half double and single combination, something about it, but like none of us can fix it. I mean, it all comes together in the end. Once you've sewn everything together and you get
Then
your
don't
front board
worry
and you get
about
your
it. Then
pockets,
don't worry about it. Yeah.
it just makes me wonder. I mean, it's got to be the combination because like everyone was like, hey, and I need to I'm going to have to put a note in the pattern that's like, if it's a little slanted, just keep going.
So, so when you're done with your squares are leaning.
Yeah, so when you're
Do
done, because the
you
piece,
do you go around your square each square and give it a border?
so it works up as like a big W. So you
Okay.
start, I'm going to scoot back so I can show you. So I work a whole big piece of ribbing that is the ribbing that goes all the way around the bottom. And then
Okay.
you attach at one corner to start your body of your jacket. And then you separate out three panels. So you've got a front panel, a back panel, and a
Okay.
front panel, and you fold them over. So it's all one big piece, but the whole piece is leaning. Now, blocking has
Hmm.
worked. So pretty much everyone who
Okay.
was willing to block, because I don't block my stuff. So
Right.
I'm going to put it in a pattern that this is an option to help. It does work depending on the yarn you're using. Um, but it's got to be something about that combination of stitches because it's every single person was having the issue.
Hmm.
I thought it was just me. I was like, maybe it's just the way I crochet. But it's an interesting thing, like just the things you run into designing
Yeah.
pieces of like, wouldn't have thought of that. Don't know why that's
Yeah.
a problem, but
Yeah, I tend to feel like I'm doing something wrong when something like that happens, but like
yeah,
that you finished it and then you realize that it didn't affect it, that's important. So definitely note that in there. But if
yes,
blocking fixes it, then definitely say to block it.
yes,
You know,
yep.
to fix that, you're definitely going to need to block. However,
Mm-hmm.
this is what it looks like if you don't block it, and it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't bother me. It turns out fine. So
Yeah,
that way it puts it on the buyer what
yep.
they want to do for their finished item.
Because I do think that it's when you have that many people asking, you know, as a designer that you're going to get that question. Like you know, you're going to get
Absolutely.
an email where someone's like, "I've gotten halfway through your pattern, and this is what's happening. Am I doing
Yes.
something wrong?" And you don't want to have to answer that a million times. So it's like
No.
putting a little note in there.
Yes. Yes. It's important.
So we have about 5 minutes left, and I
Okay.
really wanted you to have a chance to let everybody know, like, what are you working on? Like, what are some of the things that you've got, kind of in the queue that you're, if you want to share anything.
Okay. I've got several waistcoat stitch hats that I don't know if I'm going to actually have time. I've already turned off my commissions for the coats that I do because that's something that everybody loves for me. I've got a big fan base and I don't have like a waiting list for them. I
Mhm.
just turn on commissions, and when I get so many, then I just turn them off so that I don't get too overwhelmed. Now figuring out the babysitting thing and how much less
Yeah.
time I have for that as well. I have to figure out. But when I started making the bear hoods, one of
Hmm.
the first ones that I made that I didn't even release was Scare Bear, and
Hmm.
he's off of this like gnarly looking. Have you ever seen those Fugler dolls?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
they have these crazy like weird human looking teeth, but the teeth are going
Yeah.
all crazy. Yeah. So I
Hmm.
saw somebody made some kind of doll that I loved. And so it has those teeth in there.
Hmm.
And I've got like Scare Bear coming that you can buy
Yeah.
those teeth off of an Etsy shop that makes fake teeth if you want
Wow.
and glue them on there. I really need to finish him. He's written. I didn't like the yarn that I picked for it.
Hmm.
So I bought new yarn and I just have not allowed myself time to crochet him over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, because I'm trying to finish up this. I don't think it should take too much longer for so that Amelia has something cute to wear for Halloween.
Yeah.
Um, but I really need to focus back on my designs. I kind of got used to not being able to do anything. And so I'm just allowing myself to do whatever I want to
Yeah.
do that day, uh, just to ease back into it.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, it's really it I know that like work-life balance doesn't really exist, but there's ways to let yourself like reset almost, I feel like is the
Yeah.
right word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I had to have it for my anxiety. I had to have it
Yeah.
because I stayed so busy and it was just such a certain way and it just everything completely halted and stopped and now it's all different. Everything's different. So
Yeah.
I have to find my new normal and I don't know what I haven't found it yet. I don't know what it is. I'll get there, but I just gotta let it happen.
Yeah. So we did have someone ask, I wanted to make sure I got this question. So Emma Louise Jackson asked, I'm interested in learning the waistcoat stitch. What yarn do you think works best when starting?
When starting, any yarn if some people don't like Hobby Lobby yarn because of Hobby
Mhm.
Lobby and their business. I I personally just use their yarn just because it's yarn. I don't support any of the other stuff that goes along with it. Uh, Hobby Lobby yarn is a good worsted weight. It's very soft. Um, it works up the waistcoat stitch kind of fat when you're first
Mhm.
doing it. It helps you not get it so tight where you can't get in there. Um,
Yeah.
so then if you want to do one of my hats, I always say like the chicken hat. One of them that has just one image, not a lot of color changes, something that you can kind of pick up and kind of learn the technique
Yeah.
of making a finished waistcoat stitch beanie is
Mhm.
you're gonna need to practice. You're just gonna by the fourth time you make one, it's gonna be perfect.
Yeah.
But
So
you gotta practice.
so the beanies that your patterns are for, they do they call for a worsted weight yarn?
Yes, yes. I
And
use
what
worsted weight
size
yarn,
hook?
and uh, that
I know it
depends
depends
because
on
you can.
gauge.
Well, it depends on gauge, but it also you can size it that way as well.
Mhm.
So, and depends on the yeah. So if you want to do a toddler hat, you would use a 5 millimeter. If you want to do a larger child, a teen hat, you would use a 5.5 millimeter. If
Okay.
you want to use an adult hat, you're going to use a 6 millimeter. If you want a large adult hat, you're going to use a 6.5 millimeter.
Okay.
And this stitch, really, that is all you need is a hook size and change. However, some I had a request for a first time ever I heard in my life a 27-inch circumference head.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that that person has a very large head,
Yeah.
but that is not like a normal size head. And so you would have to know how to increase how many stitches you need to increase. And another part of it is you want your band to be smaller than your hat
Mm-hmm.
to help it kind of stay on and not get too loose. The more you're taking your hat off and on, it's going to stretch that out over time.
Yeah.
If that gets so stretched out that your hat is making this weird shape like this, it's not really no longer a beanie,
Yeah.
and it's not going to look so good because some people have complained about the brims being too tight,
Mm-hmm.
but they're the brim, if you're doing a ribbed brim, I like slip stitch brims for that reason in
Mm-hmm.
particular. They're so stretchy and so forgiving, and it makes the whole entire thing look knitted.
Yeah.
Um, that's one of the biggest things that I get. That's not crochet, that's knit. I don't
Yeah.
know how to knit. I promise you
Yeah.
it's crochet.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah,
you don't knit.
a fatter stretchy yarn is
Okay.
what you want. I do love wools. Uh, because it's an animal fiber, not everybody can use it, but they're
Mhm.
very stretchy and forgiving, um, and just are absolutely beautiful with the waistcoat stitch.
And it sounds like if you're someone like me who tends to be a very, if you know that you have really tight tension, then it would make
Right.
sense to start with, like you said, start with the adult size hook, like a 6'5", or even go up to a 7 if
Yes.
you're concerned, because that would
Yes.
probably make it easier to start out and practice.
way easier to practice with. Because I mean, the I just loved it and I went for it. But a
Hmm.
lot of the first hats I have just don't fit me. They fit
Hmm.
my 10-year-old and not me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm so, so glad that you got to come on today. I think I figured we'd go over a little bit because,
Okay,
I mean, I think when we had our chat, I was telling everyone who's listening, we had our chat yesterday because I always try to chat early, and we probably could have chatted for like 3 hours.
right.
So that was really great, and I hope that at some point we can do this again.
Absolutely.
I know I'm gonna try to start bringing people back on just to check in and like see what people are working on. See what's new, what new yarns they've tried and patterns they're working on and things like that. So I think that will be really great. But I'm so glad that this worked out and you got to come on. And if you guys are not following Jennifer, please be sure to go follow her. If you came in late, you will be able to um, watch this on my Instagram feed. It'll be reposted pretty much immediately on
Okay.
Instagram, and then within the next couple hours, it will be on my YouTube channel. If that's easier for you guys to bookmark and rewatch things, I do have a playlist dedicated to all of these. I think this is now episode 32. So that's pretty cool. There's plenty of binge watching that you can do. But again, the whole point of these is to meet new people, discover new designers, make new fiber friends, grow your community, and just get to know some more people that share similar interests and love yarn like you do.
Yeah, so thanks for having me. And if you're here on Instagram following me, you can go to the link in my bio, and I'm on Ravelry, and I have a coffee shop, and then I'm on TikTok and Facebook and Instagram, and that I am on Twitter, but I haven't done anything with it yet.
I,
So I'm just like sometimes it feels like it's a bit much to like I
yes.
need an extra person. So, but I'll get there.
Yes. I feel like I'm not quippy enough for Twitter. I guess that's the right word. Like I never have like little things to say.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, just
But
every time you share your post of what you're going to share on Facebook or
yeah,
Instagram, you just copy it and go share it over there. It's just like,
yeah,
one more place.
yeah.
I was doing Reddit for a minute. Like it's just too much. I have to dial it back down a little bit.
Oh, I think I lost you a little bit. Let's see. It may be me.
Okay.
Oh, I can hear you. I see a circle.
I know I can see you
There
just
you are.
fine. I'm not sure if it's me
There
or
we go.
not.
I see you now. I think that's the universe telling us that it's time. But thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm just so glad you're here. Please go check out her patterns, follow her on Instagram, join the Facebook group for sure. She's got an amazing, amazing Facebook group. And we will definitely have to do this again. But I hope you guys have a fantastic Friday. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And we will talk again soon. Happy hooking, guys. Bye.